You ever mess up and hurt somebody? Whether it was a mistake or an accident, and you see what you did, that can feel pretty bad. It can feel worse though when we hurt somebody maybe on purpose. Maybe we were so stressed out, frustrated, or fearful, we forgot how to love somebody. And we cool down or we learn what we did. That can feel really bad. Especially if we hurt somebody we care about. And that makes sense. We don't want to hurt the people we love. But everyone deserves love. So maybe even worse are those times when we hurt other people and we feel nothing. Or even worse than that are the times we hurt others and we find a way to feel good about it. I'm not saying it's worse because it's good to feel bad. No, feeling bad is bad. Feeling bad feels bad. But I think today we need to learn that we should feel a little bit, maybe like dirt. I mean like the dirt in today's parables. The ground, the soil, the earth out of which God's creating love brings life. That's what we're talking about. In today's story, some of the ground doesn't let anything grow. Or better put, some of the conditions don't let anything grow. We have birds stealing seeds. That's not the soil's fault. We have seeds among thorns, which Jesus says is like people who want to be loving, who want to be disciples, but money and worldly power become their priority instead. Maybe that's a little bit like this here. There may be fruit, but it's a little more difficult for anyone to get at it. It's harder to benefit from it. Or maybe it's more like this. There's some fruit here, but it's among these riskier plants, and it's hard to get at it at all. Again, that's not the soil's fault. But we're going to focus on the soil that is the path for a bit. Like this here. Would you expect anything to grow here? It'll try for sure. Every here and there you see some hardy plants really going for it. But the ground is hard, it's dry, anything that sprouts gets stepped on, it's pressed down and trampled. Jesus says this hard ground, it's like people who hear God's word, but it can't last in them. Now, Jesus' words are about how we should love each other. And when we love others in real, in tangible ways, with care and provision, by going after real justice, the justice that restores and builds people up, those things, Jesus says those things are life-giving. But other things get in the way of or take from that. Jesus says other things come in and destroy that love. The thing is, this path isn't trampling itself. The path isn't calling down the birds. Getting trampled on, having your seed stolen, all of that is something that happens to the soil. And contrast that with the dirt here that is able to hear the word, to receive it and understand it. The soil that is able to help life germinate. Look at this. This isn't a fancy garden. You can see I've got weeds and other plants growing in among the pumpkins, but I've got pumpkins. And all I did was throw some pumpkins out here. Really. I took a pumpkin, I smashed it on the ground, and there's no sprinklers or extra irrigation here. I do water it a bit, but this is mostly from just our very little rain. The most important feature, it's not being trampled. Now with just a little bit more tending, it does really well. Imagine how many more pumpkins there would be if we nurtured it even more. Jesus says that soil is like people who are able to put his words of love into action. They help bring about something life-giving. Here's a tangent. Look at this. If you look carefully, you can see a little path here, up the side of this hill. You can see a light trail. It goes right up there to those rocks and trees. And I bet up in those rocks and trees there are some animal homes, and if we stayed hidden here, I bet we'd see them using this path. And you can see the path, but you can also see that there are still plants growing. They're maybe a little bit dried up now, but it's not a path like I've been walking on.
So imagine how much trampling it takes to completely wipe out the plants. How much stepping on does it take to make a hard-packed trail that's almost like a rock? That's a lot of trampling. And back to the main point, Jesus is talking about ground that has been really walked all over. Now, the way the world judges things, we might look down on that rocky path. We might think that that soil is worthless, give up on it. Who needs it? That's wrong. And so is the flip side. Someone who has the good luck to be undisturbed soil might think they did something themselves to not be trampled on. Neither of those are correct. Because think of the times you have forgotten how to treat someone with the love they deserve. Why or how did that happen? That happens to everyone sometimes. Sometimes we all forget to love other people the way that they deserve to be loved. So imagine being so trampled, so walked all over and pressed down, that life's troubles, or when push comes to shove, there is no love to grow. Love feels impossible. It would be terrible to think, well, some people are just bad soil. That's not the point of this parable. That's not what Jesus wants us to take from it. Instead, if we follow Jesus' example, I think the lesson is to have some compassion.
The lesson
for
might
the
also
people who
be
get
that if you're
trampled on. Good dirt, if you are able to hear and understand Jesus' words of love, if you're able to help germinate life, then you've got some love to share, and you might be able to help improve someone else's soil conditions. And that's an important and big job, because I'd say right now one of the most loving things we can do is to bravely name and work to change those things that trample our soil. Those things that try to make us forget not only how to love, but try to make us forget that we, like every other person, deserves love.